how's it going? Today we got a little bit of air and fuel delivery happening. So I got home from work and it was like Christmas. I got a few little things I've been waiting on, and that's why there's been nothing really done. But no, we're gonna have all sorts of weird stuff happening here soon. So anyhow, we'll go over it. Alright, first off, you're going to see a breather where the PCV valve normally is. And don't go biting my head off yet. I'm going to tell you what's going on. PCV valves are awesome. One of the best inventions ever. They keep your oil clean. They get moisture out. And the way they normally work, you'd have your PCV here and you'd have your breather here. And under vacuum, it sucks air in your breather, not out. It sucks it in, and that's why there's a filter in there. And it goes to the crankcase. It gets out moisture. It keeps a negative pressure on slightly in your crankcase, which prevents oil leaks. And yeah, great invention. But this motor is not going to be used for driving around on the street. It's the throttle is going to be pretty much an on-off switch. So under wide open throttle, there's no vacuum. So when there's no vacuum, the PCV valve does nothing. I would get a crankcase breather kit for headers, the kind you weld into the collector. But as you can see, we're not running headers. And as you can see, there's no manifold on this side because that side's going to have a little interference with the steering. So we might have to get the old grinder out and massage her a bit. So this is a 3/4 inch. In the factory valve cover, it's 3/4 inch. So I was able to find a breather that actually fits 3/4 inch. And what I do, anything like that goes into a grommet, I put a little grease on it. Because someday down the road when you go to take it out, you know how the rubber likes to glue itself and you're fighting and wrecking grommets and everything else. So a little grease goes a long way on stuff like that. Same thing with rad hoses. I've said it before. On all my rad hoses, on the males, I put some grease on them before I tighten them down. Reason being, they won't seize on, you won't wreck your hose, and you won't be prying with a screwdriver and fighting and fighting and fighting. So, we got that taken care of. This side, it's not going to arrive. This is a 1-inch one. It isn't going to arrive till later on this week. And the way these breathers are going to work, like I say, it's not going to see any vacuum ever unless I'm idling coming up the line or whatever. So under wide open throttle, the bit of blow-by that gets by the rings is going to vent out through here. I've put breathers here before on an Olds, but it works fine till you have her wide open, and it's nothing to do with blow-by, nothing. Even on a brand new motor, no blow-by. It must create a bunch of wind turbulence, and even though there's a baffle down in here, it will spray oil out every time. It'll have nothing come out the valve covers, but it will come out here. It'll mist like crazy out there under high RPM. So it must be just like a vortex wind tunnel in that crankcase. It must be just flying everywhere. So I don't recommend putting a breather on here. It sounds like a good idea, but not so good. So we got some carb spacers stuff going on. What I have is that's a spread bore adapter. A lot of guys say you should have a sealing plate or an adapter to go from spread bore to square bore. I think a lot of it depends on the gasket. If you have a wide gasket, it will seal up just fine. I've done it lots, but we're going to do things a little bit right this time. So we put that on there. Then we got a 2-inch spacer, plastic one. Reason for the plastic, to isolate heat from the carb. I went with a 2-inch. 1-inch would have been fine, or even 1/2 inch since I already have the adapter underneath. But we're going with the theory of more is better. I don't really recommend this style of carb spacer because I've had them before on street cars, and just idling around from the heat, the rubber gets warped, deteriorates. It's pretty much garbage, but for this application, it'll be fine. Summit makes a spacer. It's a Summit brand. They're brown. They're some kind of a composite material, almost like, not a cork or a wood, but it's like a real good heat insulator. And they seal in case things aren't 100%, you know, they got a little give in case stuff's not 100% true, and they work like crazy. So we got that going on, 2-inch spacer, and then I got a heat shield on it, and I had to stack a couple sealing flanges and a couple gaskets, reason being accelerator pumps were mighty close to the heat shield. And the main reason I run these heat shields, I run them on everything, is I like them for mounting things too. Because I'm going to have probably my regulator mounted here, and then I'm going to put this gauge into the regulator so I can tell fuel pressure. We're going to run about 7 pounds. And then look at this puppy. Now this is where you want to pay attention. It's a vacuum gauge. It's probably for a boiler system or something like that. Brand new, less than $10. They lied to me. They told me it was 1/8 pipe thread. I bought it on Amazon. It's 1/4 inch, but I'll get a wedge nipple from 1/4 inch female to 1/8 male, and we'll plug her in one of these vacuum ports. There's only about 1 million of them on this intake. So vacuum gauge is like your scanner of 50 years ago. They are an awesome tool. I used to not use them. I used to not really believe in them. They are awesome. You think you can tune a carb good idle mixture screws by ear? Well, you'll get it better with this. You can buy a gauge for $20 that, you know, just pushes into any vacuum port for testing. And yeah, they're awesome too. But when they're in the bottom of your toolbox and then the thing's smashed because you put something heavy on top of it or whatever, it's a pain in the ass. So it's nice having a vacuum gauge all the time. You can, you know, you can figure out so many things with a vacuum gauge. You can adjust your carburetor. You can tell if you got a dead hole or a miss. You'll see it flutter. Just a great tool. So we're going to screw that somewhere where it works. Maybe there, maybe there. I don't know yet, but we're going to get her screwed in. And yeah, so I'm going to have these 4 gauges under the hood. Some people might think it's stupid, whatever. To each their own. But let's say, for example, you have these gauges under your hood, and then you have just your factory gauges in your car, because, you know, you got a nice old muscle car. You don't want to be cutting the dash up or putting screw holes in things to hold it. And all of a sudden, one day you got no oil pressure. And you're wondering, oh, is it the gauge? Is it the sensor? Do I actually have no oil pressure? And same thing with the temperature gauge. Well, at least with this, you can pop your hood, and you can check right away, and, you know, help you sleep at night. It'll, oh, I got oil pressure. The sending unit's no good. So it's a nice backup, and it lets you know what's going on under your hood. And if you're like me, you spend more time under your hood than driving the car. So that's the plan for the gauges here. The carb is a 750 Demon. It's a double pumper. It'll be perfect size for this motor. A lot of people say it's too small, but I think just the way the Olds is with they don't have the best flowing exhaust ports, and they're a very long stroke motor, 4 1/4 stroke. They don't turn the most RPM, and a 750 works fine. Like, we're going to ship this thing probably 5,500, somewhere around there, give or take. And yeah, it's going to work. It's going to work great. So I've ran the same carb before. I used to have the same carb on a 400 small block Chev with a 4-speed in a T-bucket, and it worked awesome. A lot of people run them down. They're kind of a Holly copy. I've heard bad things about the first ones, and this is one of the first ones because it weighs about 200 pounds. But if you can get past the weight of it, it should work pretty good. I paid $200 for that carb Canadian, so that's like nothing in American dollars. Actually, it's about $150. But it looks like new, and it's going to work pretty good for us, I think. So, yeah. You know, so yeah, hopefully it works as good as it looks, and we should be laughing. So that's the plan. And when I get the plumbing fittings and stuff like that, I will get the rest of it all dialed in. And yeah, I'm going to go to Home Depot here probably tomorrow night because I got to get some electrical wire. I had a short in the garage where I went through a stud, the wire broke inside. And yeah, I got to go there anyhow. So I will get some fittings and hopefully the other breathers in, and we'll get her all buttoned up and see how she looks. I'll probably also mount the regulator and then go from the carb to the regulator. I like to put my regulator as close to the carb as possible. Reason being, you have high pressure going farther in the line. I also like to put my filters on the high pressure side. Probably doesn't make much difference, but just the theory behind it is more pressure will make it have less restriction going through the filter. It won't choke her off so much. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. I'm also going to build a scoop for dirt cheap for the top of that. I'll probably put a plastic bag over it or something when I'm trailering the car down. But when I get there, I'm going to have a setup that'll probably at least stop sparrows and swallows. All right, if you got any questions or you want to tell me your thoughts on my theories, feel free to let me know. All right, have a good one. Till next time, eh?